rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued, she'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years, and let her sew again.
Hello everybody, welcome back. So I'm going to start getting this little Spartan 99 looking machine put back together, and she is freshly painted. Someone was asking me what to do with a stiff main shaft, and what I do is probably slightly different than other people, but it's close enough, and I will show you. I don't remove main shafts. I just find that that's much more trouble than it's worth. So as you can see, I'm putting a piece of tape on. I might need another layer. And what I do is I find a socket that is pretty close to that size without the tape. Usually there's one size that's too small, one side that's big enough, but it has a little bit of play. The tape is what's going to take up the play. So one piece, well, that's not quite enough, so I'm going to go ahead and put a second piece of tape on there. Okay, so now with the other piece of tape on, if I really try, I can kind of wiggle my socket on, and that's what I want. I want it tight enough that as this is pushed on, it's not pushed on all the way, just enough that it can grab. What I have is at the end of my sockets, I have one of these little guys, and these just came in a kit, a Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight. They had 3 different sizes of them, but that way I can put this into my drill and this into the back of my little socket set piece there. And I have put oil in all of her holes, stuck a penetrating oil can in here, and pushed that little spout all the way back as far as I could and gave a really, really good douse, okay? Because I want a lot of that penetrating oil to be up here around that bearing that it goes through. And so while I'm working on it, I'm going to kind of angle her up this way, okay? And let me take this glove off. I was doing something else over there. I get a drill, and I should have put this on before, but oh well. Okay, so now my drill is connected, if you can see, and I'm just going to get her started. Okay, so while that was going really fast, hopefully it's got the penetrating oil going, and yeah, now it spins really, really easily. So that's what I do. You know, everybody's different. I am just not a fan of taking these out, and I have found that with enough time with my little drill, everything's usually on 99.9% of machines, that does what you need it to do. And by wrapping tape around here, you can be really confident that you're not going to mar up this little bushing here at the end of your main shaft. So that's what I do. It's pretty simple. Let me go ahead and put this away and we'll get started. Now, off camera, I went ahead and put my little light back together. This is the original light bulb. I'm going to see if I have an LED that I can swap that out with, but this is my motor. You know, I like that it's going to be painted the right color, and it is a �ฑ𝐤𝐼𝐼 motor. It's just not the typical 99 motor, you know, it's the Spartan version, but that's okay, that's good. So actually I'm going to set this aside, and because that's going to be one of the last things I put onto this machine, and I have tested it out and it does work, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so figuring out where I want to get started. I think I'm going to get started inside here so that I have the bottom of that shaft that I can connect everything underneath here to. So that means the stitch length fork, all of this kind of stuff, but first I need to get some gloves on. We had a storm blast through here just a couple hours ago, or at least an hour ago, and it is so hot and humid right now. I'm not too sure how long I'm going to last in the shop, so we'll see. It may just be step one, but hey, at least that's something, right? And I know there's a lot of people who can't stand wearing gloves while they work. Well, I do a lot of other things besides this. I do a lot of sewing, and I need to make sure that my hands aren't, you know, disgusting while I'm working with fabrics and stuff. So if you can get away without wearing them, great for you. Okay, and because I try to keep all of my little pieces organized by category here, I have cleaned these. So here is my tiny little fork. Everything else is going to go into my little dish here. Okay, so this is the little stitch length knob that goes to the outside. This is the block that the little bearing that's going to be on here is going to travel in. Lots of stuff to work out here. This bolt with the big shoulder, it is a centered bolt, okay? That is the one that's going from the outside here, this little hole right there. That's what this is going through, and inside of the machine, it's going to be connected to this hole right here. If I can get it started on this block, come on guys, okay? And on this part of the block where there's that little threaded area, this stitch length is going to get threaded in. Oops, wrong side. Over here, okay? So lots to put together. This is my bearing that is going to be going onto this fork, and I'm not going to show you me struggling with getting it all together because sometimes it works super easy and sometimes it does not. On the 99s, there's no little access hole over there on the side to help you out. So there's that. I put my block with a little cloth on it down there. This is going to be going into the machine this way. So actually, let me go ahead and get that set in. And let me see, maybe I can do it through this hole easily. We will see. This needs to slide over that. Actually, that worked pretty easily. Should I celebrate too early? Let me get it pushed up. This needs to get lined up underneath that hole so that this screw can go through it. It's got the little 3-pronged washer, okay, and the prongs go slightly downward towards the machine. So I can see that little threaded hole. I'm just using this long pointy thing here to try to get it lined up and hoping that I can get this in there. See how it's like right underneath that bushing, which is not the most fun. I'm gonna get it started with just a little bitty screwdriver because it's what is handy right here. And let's see if it can get started. Is it? I think it is. I think it is. Oh, that is so good. That is so good. Okay. So I just tightened it up with my big girl screwdriver, making sure down here at the bottom, this is behaving like it should. And over here, reaching through this hole, I'm gonna grab that block and see if I can raise it and lower it. It feels a little too snug. So I'm gonna try backing this out just a bit, and that's much better. Okay, you want it stiff enough it's going to hold its position, but not so much that it's going to bind up. So let me see if I can find that happy medium place. Okay, we're going to call that good. I can always come back later and adjust that because it is on the outside. I need to go ahead and get this put on, and if you remember, this machine had a painted, black painted plate up here on the front. I stripped off the black paint, which just left this pretty brass piece, And so that is what's going to go here. If you can see through there, that's the little places where that screw is going to go through. So if I place this here, I'm just placing it, I'm not actually screwing it in yet. I can get this, reach through there where I can see everything and thread that through the hole. It's a long thread, okay. And can I move it up and down? Yes, I can. Okay, so I'm feeling good about that. So I'm going to go ahead and put the little screws in here to connect this plate onto the front. All right, so I've got that in place. So down here, this is the bottom of that fork. This bolt, it's eccentric bolt, it's off center. That's going to go through the bottom of it this way with the nut over here. I'm just going to leave it there for right this second while I get the part that it's going to be connecting onto set. If I can get this nut started. Okay, I'll be taking that off in just a second, but that way I know where it is. Alrighty, so let me get my pivot points out here. Looking nice and clean. And I'm just going to start threading them. I've got the little nuts on there. I'm just going to get them just started on each side. Okay, and this, where these ends are here, that's what's going to be held in place when those pivot points come out a little further. And at this point, I'm not doing final adjustment of this, I am just holding it in place. I think I need to get my screwdriver over here. Okay, so that's held there, this is held over here. That's good enough for right now. Okay, I'm going to put this little fork on. There's a hole in the casting right there. Sliding this over, and it has a large, centered, regular old shouldered screw, bolt, whatever. It's going to go through that casting. Okay, nice and snug. Snug this up all you can because with that shoulder it should still move freely. All right, and this little fork should have that bearing from this shaft inside of it. Okie dokie. Now we have this arm here, and down here, well actually let's get this connected first. Remember this piece right here? I'm going to pull this nut off, raise it up, and where this hole is in that shaft, I need to get these two lined up so that they can connect. And why are you not wanting to line up? Hang on a second, let me take a peek. Okay, I had to unscrew this and shift it. It's hard to see, but this, okay, there's a little piece right here, and it needs to be pushed. If you can push it so it comes all the way to the back, it's not going to live there, but if you can do that, it should be in the right position so that this fork can meet up to it. And I had it a little bit too forward, so get this through and start threading it through this hole. Come on, little guy. Okay, and there should be a oil hole in there, but I'm going to go ahead and throw some oil on that piece there, so it's going to be good. Okay, now getting my little nut. I'm just going to get it on here, hand tight at this point. This is another adjustment position, so when I'm setting up my stitch length and everything, this is an adjustment that I'll be needing to make at that point. But again, that is not the point that we are at right now. So I'm just going to turn these pivot screws tight enough that things are going to stay approximately where they need to, but not set in stone. Okay. All right, I got a little wiggle wiggle, and that's okay. All right, making sure this is still in that little slot, which it is. Now I have this piece. It is all clean. These pieces have been cleaned and put back together in the right way. I find that doing it like that helps me a lot. There's a flat side and a curved side. Put the curved side towards the machine, okay? This is gonna slide on down here. And you know what? I'm gonna pop a drop of oil on that too. Okay, now with that on, down there, all right, I need to turn this around. Hang on a sec. I have to like bring this around in that way. So now that is good. This bearing here is going to be riding in this slot right here. Put a little oil on that, and I need to line it up with the hole in the casting below it. And that is what this big piece is going to go down. Okay. So let's see if we can get this started to thread up. Feels like it's starting. Okay, and I'm just turning that little nub that my wheel's going to go on, and things are looking good, so that's positive. All right, now we have this little dog bone, the little clamp that holds the end of the hook in, but over here, before I go too much further, I've got this little flat screw that's going to go in the top. Now, at the time that I make all of my adjustments, and that should be pretty soon actually, there's a little screw on this side of this clamp, and on this right there, you can see it, that I will need to tighten up also. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up right now because I don't want to forget. Okay, so tightening up that one and this one. Okay, I need to, hang on one second. I popped the hook in here because I wanted to see how that was going to work on the bottom side, and I got sidetracked. I thought I would show you. If you ever paint a machine, you want to make sure that all of this is really cleaned out, and it looks like I got some paint in there. So what I do, I've got an X-Acto knife, and I'm just lightly running it around that edge so that before I start trying to scrape out that paint inside, I'm kind of like scoring it up here, okay? That way, when I come back in like this and try to push that paint out, it's not going to push everything off. I already have like a protective scoring going on there. So yeah, if you just start popping it out before you score it, you could pull up big chips of paint, and that is not a happy time, I can tell you from experience, you know. So anyway, just lightly running my knife at an angle over that very top little ridge there, just for like a little protective line before I start scraping out my paint. Okay, so enough of that. This is just sitting in there. I can pull it out if I want to, but it just pops through that hole. Let me go ahead and flip her back over. So this is the bottom. Let's see if I can scoot you over a bit. This is the bottom of the hook here, all right? This clamp goes around that hook. And this is always the tricky bit for me. I want to make sure that this screw is in a position, this screw right here, so that when I'm coming from over here and towards the front, I can get to it. So if it looks like this, then I can fold it in. All right, and now I can push this down through. Come on, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. There it goes. Okay. That's pretty good. All right. I'm going to give this screw just a tiny little tighten just to hold that hook in place while I flip everything back. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this little screw back in here. It's a long one. Get a little screwdriver here. Back you out. So I can get this settled in there. I should probably actually put my bracket in before I get that tightened in all the way, because see this hole right here? Maybe when that gets tightened in all the way, it's going to be holding this in place. So I did totally take this apart and clean it, pulled out the old felt, put in a new felt, which I should probably go ahead and load up with oil right now while I'm thinking about it. Okay. And I'm going to set her in place here. Come on. You know what, let me back that screw out just a hair. I think I already might have it in too tight for this to fall into place easily. All right. There we go. All right. That feels pretty good. I'm going to tighten it up. This can still lift up and move everything back and forth, but it's not going to fall out. My bobbin case, I'm not going to put that in yet. I have other things I need to worry about first, so I'm just going to put this aside and keep it safe. All right, my hands were sweating too much. I had to take those gloves off. I'm going to go ahead and put my feed dogs back on. Let's see here. All right, if you can see that little slot right there, that's what the feed dogs are going to fall into, okay? And if I can grab my plate, I am going to be putting my plate on temporarily so that, gosh, it's hard to do this with my thing, so that I can make sure that I have my feed dogs set in there the correct way. Because that always helps. So, you know, when in doubt, set this in, realize how this has to go, and then it's easier to go ahead and put that in correctly, like so, into that slot. From underneath, down here, there's a little screw that's going to come right in here where you cannot see. I have had people ask me, why don't you film more of your process? And honestly, filming while you're doing something is kind of a headache. Maybe you can see, this is the screw I was talking about. But yeah, filming, it slows you down. It's a lot harder because, you know, angles are weird and things. So we do the best we can. So be kind to your local YouTuber. They're doing the best they can. And I don't know why this isn't screwing in. Come on. Okay, so hopefully you can see I got my feed dogs in there. I've got this plate on, and I'm just going to leave that on temporarily while I come back underneath here and try to make sure that I have my feed dogs positioned correctly. So, looking at them, I want to make sure that they are not rubbing on either one side or the other, you know, back and forth this way. So if I turn it, it looks like they're just badly positioned all the way around, actually. Okay, let me loosen up my pivot screws here and try to get them just starting to set in there. Okay, it's easier for me just to do it and then come back and explain. So looking at this right now, and yes, I do have my feed dogs up too high. That's okay for now because I'm about to take them out again, okay? But I want to make sure that they are not binding either side by side, and that when they travel pretty symmetrically front to back. Okay, so when I have it in its most forward position, and I can see the little gap between my last tooth and the opening edge, when I turn it to its back position, here, it's about the same in the back. Okay, so it's pretty centered. So that is what I want. And the way that I did that is the side to side adjustment is this. You need to make your pivot points in such a way that this is still going to have just a tiny bit of movement, but they're going to hold those feed dogs, because that's what's holding the feed dogs side to side here. Okay, so once I have them in the right place, and I do right now, I need to get these nuts tightened up. Okay, so that is a 9/16 nut. Let me go ahead and grab my wrench. So I'm just going to stick that through here so I can hold it in place with my screwdriver, and keeping the head of my screwdriver in the exact same spot, tighten up that nut, okay? And then double checking and make sure that nothing has moved, and it hasn't. We are still traveling well. Okay, the adjustment for front and back, making sure that's centered, is this here. So once you have the side to side, then this little screw here is what you need to adjust to move it so that you get that front to back movement. And once you have it in the right spot, you need to tighten up that little nut behind it. All that is done. Yay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set her into her little base so that I can just turn her, because the way that these are set up, they need to be up off the ground when you're getting things together. So that's going to make it a lot easier to handle. While I have it handy, I'm just going to get this screw put in. Again, I'm not tightening it up all the way because I won't know the right position for this until I got my bobbin winder set up, because you center this so that when you're winding your bobbin, it centers the thread. So I'm just going to kind of leave it loose for right now. And another just random little piece I'm going to be putting in is this thread guide. Okay. There should be a hole. Hang on, let me tip her up so I can see where that hole is. There's a hole underneath here that this slides into. Okay, so right now it's moving all over the place. I want it like that, and then this little screw is going to go in here. Get it started. Okay, and actually I kind of like it where I can slide the thread in there easily, so I'm just going to leave it looking like that. All right, so now that's not going to move anywhere. Alrighty, so I am going to get started on the nose, but not now. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I am just going to take a break, go back into the house for a bit. I think this is a good step for the first night, and I'll see you then. Good morning and welcome to the next day. I'm going to be working on this nose area here. So this is clean, and while I was cleaning it, I take it apart and reassemble it, hopefully in the correct manner. This part is on. This larger stud with the little groove in it is going to go up into the casting up here. This smaller one with the flat part in it is going to go into this hole. Actually, I'm going to turn that down. Now on the side of this hole, on one side of it, which is this side of the hole, there's a place where a screw is going to go into, and I need to make sure I line up the flat part of this stud with the side that the screw is going to go into. Okay, so turning it this way, that screw is going to go in this side. When I actually tighten it up, I'm going to have to flip it around, but for right now, just getting it set in, this is going to work. I'm going to go ahead, put a tad of oil into the little places where oil should be. Okay, and set this here and this one down here, and oops, hang on a sec, pop it back out again. I'm looking at it to make sure that this stud turns up here. Okay, so when this is sticking out on that side, the flat part is over there. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, and popping that in here and this down here at the same time. Come on, wiggle in. You know what? I need to put a little bit of oil into those holes, especially this one up here. So hang on a sec. Just because that's very dry. And I do want these to slide in easily. All right, third time is a charm. Turn for me, little guy. Okay, it's getting started. I just need to get it tapped over there. Okay, I got it in. Remember what I said about how this little part here has to be positioned? There's an easier way to do this, but of course I'm not doing it that easier way. Okay, that looks about right. I'm going to want to come in on this side of this cog over here. So let me get the little screwdriver. Remember, we have a couple different set screws. The bigger one is going to go through the side over here to lock in this stud. The smaller one here is going to go through this hole into this cog. So let's get the bigger one in first. Oops, I think I have those backwards. I think the bigger one goes down here. All right, I need to turn this so I can get it lined up. There we go. All right, so that is getting started now. And let me get I have my starter here handy. I'm going to get the smaller one started up on the top, as you do. Okay, and get my screwdriver to lock this one in. Actually, I need to change out my bit for a much smaller one. Okay, so that should be locked into place. Now I need a smaller screwdriver that can go through this hole. And where's my hammer? I'm sticking my hammer over here so that cog's not going to want to turn while I am screwing this into place. And actually, I need a bigger screwdriver than this. Hang on a second. Okay, so I got those cinched in, hopefully. Oh, stay down, my boy, stay down. Okay. This is hard to do without the wheel on. I'm going to go ahead and put that back wheel on real quick. Okay, let's slide that on. All right, and then I have the usual washer. Oops. There, this way. I'm hoping that's the right way. If not, I'll flip it over. My shiny little wheel, and let me get this little screw tightened in. Okay, so can I turn it a quarter turn? Ooh, I can't turn it at all. Hang on, did I tighten that too much? I think I might have that washer upside down. So hang on a sec. Flip the washer over. Thank you very much. Put back in and tighten this up. Okay, now I can just turn it a quarter turn and it spins freely. Turn it all the way, and yes, it's engaging. So that is good. So at this point, if I turn, holding this part down, because that's where the needle bar clamp is going to go, it's going to spin all the way around like that, which is good. Okay. Okay, just for right now, I'm just sticking my whole needle bar in and sliding it all the way down, so it's kind of flush down here at the bottom. This part with the little notch taken out of it, that's what I'm going to be screwing my clamp screw into in just a minute, but I just want that in before I put my clamp in. And it does have the little timing notches on it, as you can see. Put that in this slot here. And now I should be able to push that needle bar up through that little clamp, okay? I'm going to raise this up a bit. And this part here, I want towards the back, right behind where those little notches are, okay? Like that. And then from the back side, from that hole in the back, putting this screw in to cinch up that clamp. To show you, I'm having trouble getting this threaded in through the back, and I had trouble getting it out in the first place. So what I'm going to do is just get it in there with the screw started, but so that it's not coming through that little hole, and just setting it all the way through. Okay, and then pushing this needle bar up through it, hopefully, so that everything will line up. Okay, and now that that is there, then hopefully I can just reach back through the back. It's almost like the threads inside this clamp are a little bit messed up, and I don't want to force it, so I'm going to turn this over and let gravity help me trying to tighten up that screw from the back. And I'm going to want this needle bar, I'm feeling it with my finger on this side, so it's set just above that clamp, just barely, and so that I can see this little dimple in it from the back side. Okay, so now that's working well. I'm going to go ahead and pop this little needle clamp back on, just so I don't lose that. Okay, let's get the presser bar. Actually, you know what? Before I get the presser bar in and complicate things, I want to go ahead and see if I can get this thing timed up. So I'm putting a size 14 needle in. Okay, come on, with the flat part against the needle bar. And I'm wondering why you're not going in. There you go. Okay. All right. So I need to work on timing this, and just briefly, I'm going to bring the needle down, and I need to get the eye of that needle about 1/16 of an inch below the point of the hook right here. And when I have that in place, then I can come down here and tighten up this screw, and hopefully we're good. So with that in, I'm going to go ahead and put my bobbin case in, and hopefully I can see if it's going to be close enough to pick up a bobbin thread here. Lift this up and move it over out of the way. And slide this into place. So it's engaged with the rim over here, and then put this back into place. Well, at this point I have guessed where my timing should be, and I just remembered that this machine on the presser bar has timing marks, which which would have made it easier for me if I had tried to time it after I put my presser bar in. So I'm putting my little blade for my slide plate on here. When I put my presser bar on, I will just double check that I have it correctly at that point, but you know, it is what it is. I want these two little blades to be able to flex a little bit at the top. If you remember, this was missing a slide plate. This is one of the newer ones that they have, but that actually matches the plate that goes over here, so I'm good with that. Let me get the presser bar stuff out. Okay, let's get started with presser bar. Just going to throw a bunch of oil on it so it's going to go through easy. Hope that my camera eventually starts focusing well. Maybe, kind of, sort of. Don't even know. All right, so you can see that is moving up and down well, but you know what? I needed to get my clamp on there before I did this. So this part here is what's going to slide up and down in this slot over there, so I need to get this in. So let me pull this back up and get this kind of slid into place over here. You know what? I think I need to clean that slot out over on that side. Okay, so I got that in. It's going to move freely, so let me go ahead and throw my presser bar back down through here, through that little hole and into the hole in the casting down there. Okay, and make sure everything is moving freely, and I think that it is. I'm actually going to throw a little more oil around here and up here around that casting. Spin things about to try to distribute it some. I actually feel like it's this block that's the stiffest part, but you know, do what you need to do. Okay, now everything's moving very, very freely. Good with that. While I have it upright, this needs to get put into place right here. It slides into that slot, and this hole lines up with the hole right there in that little clamp. And I have a lovely little screw that should go in there and hold it together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this foot on down here. I am not putting the thread cutter on. I don't use it. I don't want it. I don't want to put it on and take it off again. If I ever sell this, I'll include it so someone else can pop it back on if they would like. I'm not sure if I'm selling this or not. A couple people commented after my painting video that she looks like a bride. And here's the thing that I was thinking about this machine is if you're the sewing person in your family and you go to a wedding or something, have you ever found that you are the person at the last minute making quick little hems on groomsmen pants who never got them hemmed correctly, or bridesmaid dresses, or fixing little things? And I've just become that person in my life, which I don't mind. I really don't mind. I enjoy it. But I thought that this would be a great little traveling machine to take to weddings. I have my daughter's wedding coming up, and I think that would be fun to take because, you know, I made her dress, I made a lot of things, and it'd be good to have. So that's my plan right now. Okay, I am putting this spring, goes into the presser bar down here. Okay, so you don't see the spring, you just see this bar. And then I have this little finial that goes up on top. The bar goes inside of that. Okay, so now I just loosened this up a bit because I'm going to need to make a lot of adjustments. But before I can do that, I need to get my feed dogs and this little presser plate in. So it should go well because we did this earlier. So if I'm holding the presser plate this way, I know that if once I pick up my feed dogs, they're going to go in this orientation right here. Okay, So then I can just remove this foot, which is in my way here. Just get that foot out of the way. Slide the feed dogs in, and then I haven't secured them on the bottom yet. I'm going to put this plate in and get that screwed into place so that way I can adjust the feed dog height based on where the plate is. Okay, I have the feed dog set, not all the way up, you know, a good moderate height. So I think that that's going to work. Can't wait to try her out, but it's time to get her tension mechanism put together here. And here is my magnet, which I'm going to move, so we'll stop grabbing everything. Okay, lots of pieces here. And let me get everything organized and all of my little set screws and everything together. Okay, so first thing I'm doing is I'm backing out this little screw enough that I can pop this into place. But okay, on the spring there is a little wire right in here. Oh, it would help if I turned some light on, wouldn't it? I think it would. Well, maybe not. All right, there's a little spring right here, okay, and that needs to get locked in to these grooves. So if I place this on here, you can see that that little end of the spring, hopefully, I don't know why I'm not focusing today, is going up and down. Work for me here. Up and down in those grooves, okay? But it doesn't look like it's going to want to grab it. And when I was taking this apart, this whole spring slid out even while this was still connected. So what all that means is I don't think I need to get this in place before I connect this. All right, this slot here is going to be over on this side. All right, and I want my little groove in this post to be kind of horizontal. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up this little screw without stabbing myself. Okay, now this should slide in place here, and it does. And there's a hole right here that this little set screw is going to go into. And I wanted to show you how I have this set is so that this little stop is pretty much straight up. The lower opening is kind of at about a 7 or 8 o'clock spot. This is sticking out just a bit here, and in the back inside I can see about half of that screw, the little set screw. Okay, so that's where I have that set. Now I want to show you something. This machine, even though it's a Spartan, basically, if you're having trouble with one of these, look up the same issue with a 66, because that is the most common. And if you need, get a service manual for a 66, 99, 185, whatever. This is technically a 192. It's not listed on here, but it's the same machine. And I just wanted to show you, this is the picture of how the whole tension mechanism gets put together. The little post on this model, it does not have a, it does not have to go in a certain direction, and there's no little nub at the end, so you can put it in after the little post is in place. Hang on, so I'm just going to slide that in first and kind of push it in there. Okay. So that is in the little hole in there, and just to see, if I lift my lifter lever, it does stick out just a hair, so I know that's going to work right before I go to all the work to put everything else together. So once I have that in, I'm going to look at their little cheat sheet chart here. I'm going to need to put my spring in, okay? So let me just slide that into place. Like so. All right. Actually, I'm going to slide it so it's up a little bit, so I have a little bit of downward tension, but not quite so much, like that. Okay, I like it there. All right, after the spring, I got my 2 very shiny little discs, put them the curved sides together, like that, and slide it in and pull that spring over and around it. After that, take the little black part, looks like a dish. Oops, that's my timer. Gotta go do something. But this little dish, the hollow part, is gonna go on. Okay. After the little hollow part is this screw. I mean this spring, sorry. It's this little beehive looking spring here. And after that, we have this little washer. Okay, it's got this little curved end on it. As you do. And I'm going to set this on so that I am right about at 4 on top. That's, no, 5. 5 is about midway, I would believe. I should look at the book. And I want to set it on there so that that little nub of a spring is going to engage something, and I think it will. Okay, and now the little thumb nut that goes on top. All right, and you see that is turning the dial. So let me do what my timer is telling me to do, and I'll be back. Okay, I am going to go ahead and put her front plate on so I can see if everything is going to work, which would be lovely. Not going to die there. You get this smaller screw started up the top, and it is getting later morning now, and I am getting pretty hungry. So after I get this plate on, I'm going to run into the house and grab something to eat before I try to troubleshoot anything, because you know there's always something to troubleshoot. But I think she's looking lovely. Come on, if I can just get this plate on. Why aren't you behaving, huh? Okay, there we go. All right, her plate is on. I'm going to go grab something to eat, and I will be back soon. So I was about to go in, grab my breakfast, and I noticed a terrible error, but you know, it is what it is. When I was painting this, for some reason, I was assuming that this would not be visible. I was thinking that was going to be hidden by the plate, kind of like a 66. So it's got the primer coat and like an overspray of the enamel, but nothing else. So the metal itself is safe, but it's not the shiny pinkness. And you know what? That's just the way it's going to have to stay. It's too late to do anything about it. So, you know, there you go. I am getting this plate on. You start with it up here, and then these blades go into the little crevices on the bottom. Sometimes one side does not want to get started, so. Okay, there we go. So that plate is on now. It is what it is. I'm going to go get my breakfast, and I'll be back shortly. I'm going to go ahead and get my bobbin winder put back on. So this is my belt guard. I have a screw here with a washer underneath it, and it's going to get screwed in right here. Okay, I've got it screwed in enough that it's going to hold its place or come down, so that's disengaged. That, no. Well, one is engaged and one isn't. Let me get it put back onto the machine over here. It sits up like this. There's a little screw that goes right through there. But you know what? Before I put this on, I really should put the motor and the belt on, because that goes on top of the belt. So let me flip her around and get all that together. Okay, so the belt The only belt I had that would fit on her, it was slightly smaller, but I think it's okay because I just have that bracket adjusted up. And I did not have an LED light. This has one of those light bulbs that you push in and turn, and the only LED bulbs I have up in my stash are the screw type, so oh well. Ooh, I think this needed to go, how am I going to wrap this around? I think it goes like this. Okay, I need to take this little screw out here and get this wrapped up there. Okay, so I'm getting it started out of position, but at least hopefully getting those threads lined up. Okay, no, do it again, do it again. Okay, that looks like it started. Now I'm going to go ahead and tip it up so this little dimple is going into that hole. Push it in. Grab a screwdriver instead of a starter, and see if I can get this to cinch in. Okay. All right, well, it is time. Let me clear all my stuff away, plug her in. Oh, actually not time yet. I still need to put my belt guard back on. Okay, so with it like this little screw is going to go in at the very top, cinch that in, and then we'll get to trying her out and troubleshooting. Okay, so I've got her plugged in. Let's see if the light works. Please work. Yay, the light is working. Is great. Okay, so I've got my foot pedal on the floor. Let's see if that's gonna run. It's running. It's running really well. Just ignore the bouncing. It's on my Lazy Susan here. So now the moment of truth is, let's put some thread up on the top. There's a funky little felt just to stick on there. Get this threaded up through here, down through the little loop in the plate, through this thread guide, and from the outside going in. From the outside going in. Oh my goodness. Please thread for me. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and stick. This is just a piece of flannel. Let's start with a small stitch. Well, that's a little too small. Let's do something bigger than that. Well, she's sewing, which is excellent. If I lift this up and lift up the tension, tension release is working. Here are some scissors. All right, let's see what the stitches look like. That is the front, that is the back. It looks like I might be skipping a few, but I can tell you I'm using the old needle, which is a big no-no. So I'm going to pull this out. It does feel very dull down there at the end. I'm going to go grab a brand new needle. Okay, let's try it again with a new needle. Oops. I think I have my tension too tight now. Look at that. It shredded my thread. Let me back that off. Okay, so after I switched out the needle, changed my wheel, basically I had this number set that when I was at the lowest possible number, it was still too tight. So I had to push that in, readjust where those numbers were, and then set it out. So as soon as I did that, I ran one row of stitching. The purple is on the top. I have no more skip stitches. Don't know if you can see. Let me turn this light. Okay, so I don't have any skip stitches anymore, but my first row, my tension was way too tight on the bottom and loose on the top. So I adjusted that, and then my second row, this is the bottom right here, and that's the top. And that looks really good to me. So I'm going to get a fresh little piece of flannel. It's just double thickness here. Pull those threads back. Set it down. And there she goes. What an adorable little machine this is. I am in love with her. Okay. I think I might need to check and make sure that everything is good underneath. It's making great stitches. It just felt a little bit stiff as I was pulling the thread out. Let's see if it's the top or the bottom. The top is extremely tight. All right, so the tension release is not releasing terribly tight. Let's see what's going on. Oh, because it wasn't threaded through this little thread guide, it was kind of binding up here. And that's all that was, and now it's great. Well, there you go. The only thing I regret about this machine, you know, the speckle thing, honestly, that doesn't really bother me because she looks kind of antique anyway. I'm kind of frustrated that I missed this whole area here, but usually I'm going to be looking at it from the side. So later on I might get the idea to do touch-up paint, but it's very hard to do touch-up paint when you're doing a layered type of a thing, because I have a layer of white, a light layer of that rustic rose, and then a layer of clear coat with papaya sparkle. So doing all of that in touch-up paint here would be very difficult. The metal's protected. It's got the little bit of paint that's on there, so it's not going to rust or anything, and it's going to be fine. It's just going to look kind of like the shadow. So anyway, there she is. Let's put her into the camera studio for her glamour shot. Oh, you know what I have not done yet? Is run a bobbin. It's important that when you're threading your bobbin, that the center of the bobbin comes straight over this. So just to show you really quickly, if this is my bobbin here, and I need to tighten that because this is a little bit wobbly. Let me do that really quickly here. Okay. So this needs to be rubbing up against the flat part of my wheel, which it is, and that's when it's engaged like that, okay? When I don't want to use my bobbin, I can lift it up, and that spring is going to keep it so that it's not touching this wheel. But what I wanted to show you is this. Come on. I think I got it a little snagged in there. This is going to need to be in line here. Okay, so hopefully you can see. I need to actually cinch that in just a bit more. Okay, all right, that should not move now. I've got this through. I am disengaging the wheel and pushing this down. Okay, it looks like I need to tighten this screw over here on this side just a bit more because it's wanting to pop open a little too easily. And okay, so putting that back down, let's see. There we go. Why aren't you turning? Okay, see how it's loading mostly on this side? I don't want that. I want it to load evenly on both sides. So I need this hook to actually be over more this way. So I'm going to pull it over a bit and wrap it up. I'm not sure if that's the appropriate way, but just to make sure that this is where this thread is going to line up dead center on that bobbin. So let me get this adjusted. Okay, now it's running center and it's starting to fill up that other side. I think that where this is just coming out, you're just going to have to kind of push it down. I don't see a big problem with that. Get down, little spool. And when you're all done, just lift it up. So, taking that off, pulling off my new bobbin. Just going to go in here. Wrapping it underneath that finger, and it's going to pop up and come up this little slot right there. And when I push this plate in, the loose thread should be in that little hole, okay? So I'm going to thread this one more time just to make sure everything is good and she is still sewing lovely, and I'll be right back. Okay, so once again, looking at this part here, that looks good. That looks good. I'd say she's doing fabulous. So I just did the final video of her in my little light booth, and I'm going to come back and see what I can do with my airbrush just to try to touch up this little space. I'm not going to show you everything, but I'm just going to try to layer some white enamel. If I can get a light dusting of that rose out, and then maybe a little light clear coat, it'll be something at least, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so here it is after my touch-up paint in that lower section. I think it's going to blend a lot better. The little rosy, stony kind of color didn't come across very well, but it does have a little bit of it, and it does have a clear coat on it now, so at least it is just as shining as the rest, and it's not a stark white. So I'm going to call that good. I'm going to let it sit overnight, and then I'll put the plate back on and take her down to the house.
I found an antique sewing machine, forgotten and alone. I touched her rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years, and let her sew again.